for my audience and the people that follow me, who is a 7-2 mindset investor? What's this whole 7-2 thing all about?
Yeah, I, you know, the 7-2. So a lot of people when they see like my post on social media, whatever, like, oh, 7-2, that's like the law of doubling your money with interest and so forth. I'm like, oh, maybe. But in actual fact, what the 7-2 represents is the 7-2 is the worst possible hand you can have in poker. So in
Right.
poker, you played a 7-2, you dealt a 7-2, sorry, more likely want to fold that hand. In life, you can't control the hand you're dealt, but you can control how you play it. We talked about COVID. The whole world was dealt a 7-2. And it really
Right.
came down to the power to choose. How are you going to play that hand? For us, we were talking about how busy it's been one of the best years of our lives, like with business and that kind of stuff. It's because we decided to play that bad hand. And here
That's
we are
amazing.
today. So
That's
it's the mindset about the cards you're dealt.
right. And so before we get into how you cope with 2020, because I think that's important, right? We were talking just before we jumped on being a victim or a victor, and I think that's real key in regards to what happened with 2020. Let's kind of jump into Mark prior to getting into real estate investing, doing what you're doing, because I want to understand that story.
Sure, absolutely. I'm assuming your audience is going to be adult, so I'll try to keep my language somewhat tasteful. Um,
I guess I should have warned everybody because yeah, you go off script and you know what? Go ahead, do it. If you got to cuss, cuss.
Cool.
I
You know
don't mind.
what? And I appreciate that because I've tried so hard, and people tell me saying, "Hey, can you, can you go easy on it?" I've tried. It's not me, and I just want to realize and it's a great segue about this conversation because all my life that's what I was doing. That's all I was doing. I wanted to please people,
Right.
and I ended up, what it ended up doing is I worked so hard at pleasing others that I was the most unhappy human being in the world. Um, and so, to give you some background about me, I mean, I was born and raised out in Alberta in Edmonton, and went to school there. And I was blessed with an opportunity to get into high ticket sales at a very early age. So I started high ticket sales when I was 20, yeah, about 21 actually. I was 21 years old when I started high ticket sales.
Okay.
So when I'm talking high ticket sales, I was in the medical device industry. So we were selling high ticket items, ICU ventilators, critical care monitors, incubators, architectural systems, anesthesia systems. So you're upper echelon with respect to who your competitors are, and there's only a limited amount. So really, it's going to be three people always competing against each other all the time.
Right.
And let's face it, I mean, my competitors, they made great machines. Like no machine's going to go out there and kill someone. It's the user that's going to go kill someone. Um, but I had to find a way to separate myself from the rest. And we were talking before, creativity is king. And I just had to find that extra edge. I didn't have to be 10 times better than the next person. I just had to be a little bit better, just a little bit better. And so I was, fortunate that over my tenure of medical sales, I amassed um, conservatively $80 million of sales. My colleagues say it was about $120 million of sales in my tenure. And the reason I say that is because I helped my colleagues with some of their deals as well. But through that thing, I mean, I was well, through high school, I had to be the most popular kid in school. I was always throwing the parties. In university and college, the same thing. But man, I was unhappy. I was just a broken individual, and I had toxic relationships around me that I take full ownership with. Um, so you know, so everything was all geared for others, and I was just never satisfied. And so, I mean, I've been blessed. I have two wonderful children, and one is 17, one is 14 now. And but man, I things just fell off the tracks, man. It was a bad. It was like a train wreck, man.
Really.
And yeah, so I ended up going through a real nasty divorce. Uh, um, having a divorce, you can say, with my previous employer. I won't get into the details of that because I'll come send some lawyers my way, which is fine. But I just realized, you know what? I had to make changes because I lived a high life, man. Like, I mean, I lived out in Chicago. So when I was doing my medical sales stuff, I was given the opportunity to move down to the States. And I took on a role of, director of international business development and clinical applications, national sales manager for the whole US market. I was blessed and I was able to go to Europe, Australia, different places and do business. Um, so there was a lot that happened, but I lived a high life. Like, I mean, It's crazy. Box seats everywhere, like just bottles of Cristal,
Right.
$6,000 suits. It was just all that. But man, that was all bullshit, man. It was all fake. It was a wall for every people for the way they could perceive me. But all that was doing was protecting a broken individual inside.
Right. So then what was that? What was that straw that broke the camel's back? Was there a particular day? Was there a particular moment? And then what did you decide to do then?
You know what? So I was going through this journey, and everything was just, it was all going down, man, all going down fast, right? Um, and I actually spent a night behind bars. Okay.
Mhm.
And fortunately, all the charges were dropped. I was laid with the atomic bomb of divorce cases with allegations, and fortunately, everything was dismissed because of the allegations. But it was like, so you could see I went from the high life to like, man, like just straight down into a cell block.
Right.
And throughout that journey, I was still trying to find myself. And I mean, I went from, being in amazing shape in my life to gaining like, I want to say like 40 pounds within like a year and a half. Like it got really nasty, really ugly. And what happened is I'm driving with my son and he's in the back seat of the car. And he says to me, Dad, I have to ask you a question. I'm like, sure, what is it, son? And he goes to me, just don't get mad at me. I'm like, okay, like just ask it. How
Yeah.
bad can it be? And he says, Dad, why are you such a pussy? My
Oh, wow.
15-year-old son, he was
Okay.
15 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, the old me would have looked at him, he would have been grounded. And I do apologize for the language, but I didn't sleep at all that night. And when I came to realize all night, I was tossing and turning. Here I am trying to tell my son, you could be anything you want to be in the world. Fight for what you want. Create wealth. Don't be doing this and don't get pulled into these traps. And yet he's looking at me and he knows I'm doing the polar opposite.
Right.
So what type of example does that set? So it just hit me. I said I got to do something. And that's when I said it's game on. It's game on.
Yeah. And sometimes hitting that low moment in your life can be the most powerful springboard to move you in the right direction.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I tell people their vulnerability is their superpower.
Hmm.
Their vulnerability is a superpower because it's how you take that. It's like the cards you have. You can either, fold them or what are you going to do about them?
Right.
And so as soon as that happened, I went on a mission. I went on a mission from hell, really focused on personal development. What's amazing, you'll see this, you know this yourself with maybe some of your clients or ex-clients, I guess you could say they get hung up on a foundation crack on a property. No, no, I can't do this. It's like, dude, you got a foundation crack between your ears. That's the bigger issue. It's not this house.
Hmm.
And my foundation crack between my ears was too great that I had to fix that before I did anything else. And that's what I did. I said I need to repair this, and I went like 10x, 100x on my personal development. Getting mentors, reading, getting healthy, and that kind of stuff. And so in 2020, this whole switch turned on, and in 2019, I probably read one book. In 2020, I read 55 books. I got into other mentorship groups.
Right.
I'd lost 30 pounds in 2020.
And so then you got a few different coaches, or was there one particular coach that you decided to work with?
I had a few coaches actually.
Okay.
So for example, Corey McKinnon, who's been on your show.
Yeah.
I got Ben
Yeah, he's
Morosan.
great.
Yeah, Ben Morosan. Matt McKeever,
Yeah.
godfather of YouTube real estate, and others. I mean, I have health coaches. So the way I see it is, I knew I had to do something very quickly, and what that was is if I'm a high performance individual, which I know I am, just like a highly skilled hockey player, they just don't have one coach. They have multiple coaches. One is working on their mental health. One is working on their body. One is working on their hockey skills. One's working on whatever. And I said, I need to double down on this. And I
Right.
said to myself, I made a pledge to myself that I'm going to invest $1 million into my personal development.
Okay. That's
A lot of
powerful.
people say, want to invest $1 million in property. Crack between your head is not fixed. Doesn't matter. That million's going to go nowhere.
Right. So you're doing a lot of personal development on yourself, and then also, are you doing the real estate investing as well too? You have a course specific just on the real estate investing piece?
Yeah, so it's all together, right? So I'm looking to be in rooms where it's the togetherness of it. It's not just going to be on the strategy of this, and this.
Right.
It's understanding that you need to have the mental capacity, the mental fortitude to be successful in this game. Because stuff happens. Doesn't matter if you're doing buy and hold. Doesn't matter if you're doing flips. Doesn't matter if you're doing off-market deals. Doesn't matter if you're doing private lending. Stuff happens,
Hmm.
and it's how you look at those things. So I've had amazing home runs with some deals, and I've actually had other deals where I've basically taken the bat, hit myself in the head with it. But if I didn't focus on me, I would have taken my ball and said, "This is not for me," and gone
Yeah.
back. Right?
And that's what a lot of beginning investors do, right? Is that they get into it, they get hit over the head with a bat, the bat that they're swinging,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And,
Yeah,
and then they leave. This like, well, this is, my aunt, my cousin, they all told me that I wasn't going to be able to succeed, and now look,
yeah.
this is not for me. Okay, so obviously the mindset's an important piece. Now, what particular strategy did you decide to kind of go with first? Was it buy and hold? Was it the burst strategy?
Mhm.
And why?
Yeah. So prior to 2020, so when I was going down this this train wreck, I guess you could say,
Yep.
I so going through a divorce, and essentially my net worth was being completely disseminated. I mean, my lawyers were taking their pound of flesh, everybody around me was taking their pound of flesh. So I said to myself, I knew the best way to take care of this is going to be real estate. So I did have a rental property when I lived out in Chicago, but it was done just out of necessity. It wasn't really done as a business. Um, then when I moved back to Canada, I mean, I went ahead and I bought four properties within 8 months. And I said, okay, I'm just going to get this going. But I mean, again, I made this term for myself, which is a dare, which is a dumbass real estate investor, which you're just going to go and your ego is going to prevent you from asking people for help or doing things the right reason. You're going to be very scarce, not abundant in that mindset. Um, and what I did was I basically started working 2 times as harder, and I was struggling. I mean, I'd work my high ticket day job, and at night I'd go sleep on drywall to get jobs done.
Right.
And
So
all of
you were so you were the investor, you were the contractor, you were what, the property manager, you were wearing all the hats.
I was everything that I could try to do, and then I would then get that help otherwise.
Mhm.
And I was just doing it the wrong way. Um, used. And then so I was doing that, and then
So when you bought those four properties, did you have any coaching prior to those four properties? Were you just watching some YouTube videos? Were you?
yeah, just YouTube videos. It'd be just listening. I'd go to a couple local meetups.
Mhm.
But again, my mentality at the time was, and like many that get into the game, they're not thinking in abundance and thinking about scarcity. It's what can I leech, what can I take from people and put into my own versus what can I give.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's such a good point because, especially now in the information age that we live in, people think, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to watch some YouTube videos and I can just figure this out and I'm going to go and do it. And yes, you can get some great information. Yes, you can get some great content. But I think what you're really saying, and at least this is what I believe as well too, is that it's so important to have a coach. It's so important to have somebody there beside you along the way that can just show you some of those booby traps that sometimes you just don't know or are going to understand just from watching a YouTube video.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's the power behind being part of a mastermind, being getting coaching. It's the compression of time. Because
Oh,
everything else out there, there's an abundance of money out there. There's abundance of deals. There's abundance of everything. The one thing we don't have abundance of is time. So I've wasted too much time in my life trying to do it by myself. And my ego, it was just getting in my way. So I said, park the ego, accept what you're great at and what you absolutely suck at, and and get your head in the game.